I recently had the opportunity to meet Patrick Hardy. I'll get into the details of how we met in the episode itself, but he was explaining to me how he is the father of Sam, who also has autism. And in that conversation, I was so touched by his devotion and his love and just his experience of raising a son with autism that I really wanted him to come onto the come onto the podcast and share his experience with us on the Family Brand podcast. So in this episode, you'll hear one father's experience of raising a son with autism. And also, he, from that experience, realized there wasn't a lot of resources for children who have autism as far as books. And he wanted to read his son a book about what it's like to have autism, but he couldn't find anything. And so he decided that he was going to write the books about his son. And so the series is called My Friend Sam, and it talks all about different aspects of living with autism. And it's written for children. And anyway, we'll get into more of those details in this episode. But I'm excited to share Patrick and his story with his son Sam with you today.
Hello and welcome to the Family Brand Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a husband, a father, and an entrepreneur.
My name's Melissa, and I am a wife, mother, former nurse turned real estate investor.
And we believe the greatest gift you can give your child is a last name that stands for something.
Your last name is your family's brand.
If you are a parent who wants to raise your child to know who they are, love who they are, and believe in who they are, this show is for you.
We promise to bring you real and authentic conversations with parents and experts who are committed to making their family their life's most important work.
This show will help you take a stand for your family and to raise your children by design, not default.
Welcome to the Family Brand Podcast. This week I have Patrick Hardy with me. And Patrick, I met kind of by luck. I have a friend and I was asking him, his name's Denny. I was saying, Denny, I want someone to help me with some stuff on my website. Do you know anyone that could do this thing? I'm redoing our culture quiz. And he's like, yeah, I got a guy. So Patrick and I connected. Well, so first of all, welcome, Patrick. I'm so glad to have you today.
Thank you for the invitation, Melissa. It's a great honor.
So we connected about something unrelated to our topic today, which is the website. And then we got to talking and I learned more about Patrick, and he shared with me in one of our conversations about the website about his son, Sam. And his son, Sam, was diagnosed with autism. We'll get into more details of that. But the way that Patrick spoke about his son and his devotion and his just love, like, really moved me. Like, we were talking about my website and I was like tearing up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. But I was like, okay, we have to have Patrick on the podcast to talk about this because it was just so beautiful what you're doing for Sam. And I thought it was inspiring. And I wanted to share that with other people. So thank you for agreeing to come and talk all about Sam with us on the Family Brand podcast.
Well, thank you again for the invitation. I'm so excited to share the story, basically.
Yeah, why don't you just share with us your story? I would love to, yeah, let's start there.
Okay. Well, Sam was born in 2006 through 22 hours of labor, and it was 6 days late as well. And when he was growing up from birth to about 3 years old, we kind of noticed that he wasn't speaking that much. And turns out my sister, who lives in Montreal, had a daughter who was born a couple of months earlier than Sam. And around 2, my niece was talking like crazy, just like my sister. And his but my son was just little words here and there, and even little grunts. And when we visited my parents in Montreal, we saw our niece there with my sister and stuff, and noticed that there was a difference, but we didn't want to admit it. So when we got back, my parents called me and told me that, there might be something different with Sam. And of course, like any parent, no parent wants to hear that there's something wrong with your kid, especially, from your parents. And me, I don't know if you know about the Canadian culture, but Quebecers are really proud people. And I'm from Quebec and I live now in the Maritimes, but the Quebecer in me came out when my parents told me that. Like, I really didn't want to hear that from them, and that caused me to not speak to them for about 6 or 7 months. But the seed was planted, though, and so we started to look around to see if there was anything wrong that we did wrong. Because when my parents told me that there was something wrong with Sam, the first reaction was like, "Well, we live in a bilingual province. We have two languages to learn at the same time." So that's why he doesn't speak that much. So basically, we were trying to find any excuse not to admit to ourselves that there was something wrong with our son. And so it turns out that Sam had some allergies to milk really early on. And so we had to do a test for allergies. And when I went there with Sam to the doctor's office, I noticed there was a poster on the wall that says it's a program that was called Talk to Me, which would help parents to connect with their kids to help them communicate. So I went there. Turns out it was also a customer I had at the time. So in a small world, I didn't know that she was responsible for it, but she said, "Oh, hi." I was like, "Oh, hello." So we went there with our kids. So, and they put the parents in a circle and the kids were to play looking at the parents eye to eye, basically. And immediately from there, we noticed that my son was really different because all the other kids were playing with the parents, but my son was just running around and yelling, circles. And that person, that my customer comes to me, says, "You know what? I'm going to push for autism diagnostic." And that's when it hit. I was like, "Oh no, no, I, don't- I, you know, I don't, I know the word a little bit, but it's a scary word." And I said, "Oh, okay, but is there any other people we can look for at the time? Like because maybe there's a hearing problem, maybe there's a speech problem or something like that." So we met other specialists. We did the hearing test, and I found myself in the booth with Sam when he was 2.5 years old, praying that with the sounds that he was hearing in the booth, that he would turn around and look. I was just, "Please, please, turn your head." And then at one point, I remember thinking, wait, if he turns his head, that means it's a possibility of autism. So then I was praying for him not to turn his head. That was, it, it's awful to think like that, but that's where I was. And so, come 3 years old, I remember for the rest of my life that the wait was announced to us. My wife was at work, so she wasn't able to make the appointment, but I had a really good boss at the time, so he allowed me to go have the diagnosis with my son. So we went to the doctor's office, and he came in. He asked Sam to sit down, play with an airplane. And he just basically asked him one question. He says, "The airplane, Sam, do you drive that or do you pilot them?" And Sam just kept playing his stuff, you know. "Hey, Sam, the airplane, do you pilot them or do you drive them?" And Sam kept playing. So he basically his back turned to me. He writes something on the paper, just turns his head and says autistic. And that's how I got the diagnosis.
Wow.
Uh, that was a gut punch. Not only, you know, getting a diagnosis for autism is hard enough. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. But the way that he gave it to me, that was just inhuman. For me, that was inhuman. He could have turned around, just let's sit down, let's take the time to discuss this. But no, it was just autism, and then he signed some papers. "I'll get you an appointment at a Hibber Center," and then he walked out, and that was it. So I was left with, okay, so what happens now? The only thing I knew is that we had an appointment with a center in the next town, which specializes in kids with special needs. And so 6 months passed by. That was in March. The session with that center started in September. So though during those 6 months, we were in the dark. We were trying to find any documentation we could find on autism and stuff like that. I was looking for books to read to Sam to show him what autism is about. Just to not only reassure us, but reassure him as well. I know he's 3. He's not, um, he's not aware probably of what's going on, but I just wanted to introduce that to him. But there was nothing existing. The only thing existing for kids at the moment, at that time in 2009, was books that were specialized with medical terms and stuff like that. So it's not really oriented for kids. So there was a lack there. So we started with a center 2010. Everything was going great. Sam was starting to learn the basics of communications, like over, under, next to, behind, in front of. He learned how to go to potty, basically there too. That was a challenge as well because it's something from his body leaving his body, which he didn't understand what was the purpose of this. So yeah, everything that we think that's basic that you get to learn as your kid. My son had to learn those things. Ask for a glass of water, like just because he's thirsty, asking for a glass of water. For my son, that was not normal. He did not know how to do that. And that we actually got to show him how to do that with horse therapy. The horse therapy, when you ask a horse to do something, the horse reacts to it, right? So he gets the result. And so the horse therapy, we did that with Sam when he was around 5 or 6 years old. And that helped him a lot to understand that if he asks for something, he's probably going to get a result from the parents. So we did that with him. And I was looking at my son and realizing that, later on in life, things are going to be difficult for him because he still doesn't understand sarcasm. He has a hard time with humor as well. And so I wanted to do something to raise awareness to autism, to the autistic kids, give them a voice because some of the kids on the spectrum do not have a voice. And when I say that is because I'm thinking of the ones that are nonverbal, right? There's a lot of kids on the autism spectrum more nonverbal. They cannot express how they feel and stuff like that. And sometimes it's challenging for them and it's frustrating for them, even though they have a SIPS, which is that book with all images that they can use to communicate what they want. Sometimes, it just doesn't cut it. You just want to say it. You just want to, and that's why you see a lot of them that hit themselves on the wall or something like that, punch the wall or something like that, because they're frustrated because they just can't get it out. So I wanted to raise awareness for that. So what I did in 2012, I started creating pictures, drawings, sell them, and get the profits for Autism Canada because we're in Canada here. And in the first year, I sold so much that I was able to give $3,000 to Autism Canada just by myself, just by that. That in itself was, I thought it was an accomplishment.
Wow.
And I did not notice that, but Sam was starting to mimic my drawings. And so, years go by and stuff. I still sell some stuff in there. Then it starts to get well, less sales whatsoever, but I'm still drawing and stuff. I always thought when I was going to get a son, I was going to have that moment of throwing a baseball, with him. And that did not happen. I did not know how to connect with Sam. Not at all. It's until I noticed that he started trying to do the drawings that I do, that opened my eyes. I was like, there it is. This is our throwing the baseball moment. So when he was 8, I drew, I first started drawing a head of a lion. And as an artist, I started on the left side of the paper, which you never do that. You have to start from the center. And I didn't like that. So I was, oh, shoot, it's on the left side. So, instead of throwing it away, I look at my son and says, you want to finish this drawing? And he goes, yeah. And then he starts, finishing the drawing, puts in the details, colors and stuff. And the final product came out really good. So I'm like, wow, that's really cool. You want to do another one? He said, yeah, yeah. So he was excited to draw with me. So we drew over, I don't know, like 70, 80 pieces together. And we sold 47 of them. And also giving the profits to a local autism center here in Pumpton, where I live. And Sam was so happy because for him, it was like becoming an artist. He was like, I have a purpose and stuff like that. And to me, I was happy because now I had my moment with my son. I was connecting with him. Like, like art is the connection that we have. And it is still today. So we sold those art pieces and stuff. And Sam was 8 at the moment. And it really caught fire. Like he really kept selling and selling and, still giving profits to the autism center. By the end, We got about 1,200 just for the local center. So that was pretty good too. And it's funny because I mentioned to Sam back then that he is now, according to the Canadian standards of artists, he's considered an artist because he sold more than 30 pieces. So it was like, eh.
Well, you didn't care.
uh, he didn't care. Uh, but then, I still had the thought at the back of my head that in 2009, I was looking for books, talk about autism to kids, and that was still not happening. And still to that day, when Sam was 8 in 2014, still nothing, still no books about autism. So in 2016, a friend that we have, Denis, uh, I spoke with him. He says, "Why don't you do it?" And I was like, "What?" He says, "Why don't you do it? You know how to draw. You know how to write stories. It's from truth." I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah." He says, "Give a voice to the voiceless." Okay. So that's what I started doing. I started the first book in 2016. In December 2016, the first My Friend Sam came out. And I participated in a book show the year after that. And just a local book show that we have here in the Francophone community.
And that's the name
And
of the series is My Friend Sam.
My Friend Sam. Yeah, exactly. And I was there with 50 books, not expecting anything. I just go there and I sold out. Like, I noticed that all the schools that came, because all the Francophone schools that came in English schools that came too, because I when I do the books, I do them in both languages. So I sold out like completely. I've never expected this reaction. And that prompted me to create a second book and then a third and a fourth. And now I have 14 books in French and 11 in English.
This is kind of a
And
side, but if I can interject, just for context, where you live, it is required to have both English and French. Is that correct?
that's exactly it. We're the first official bilingual province of the whole country. So but like for me, it was a no-brainer because autism doesn't have a language. Like,
Mhm.
it's everywhere. It's Vietnam, it's in everywhere. And so, yeah, so those books, I really filled a hole, like something that was missing because it really, really is working. I even have a person who approached me, says, "You want me to translate those in Vietnamese?" And he says in Vietnam, it's a big thing. There's a lot of autism kids. And unfortunately, the parents, they don't know. Like they just, so having one of those books that might help them. So, okay, sure. Yeah. And so we have books in Vietnamese as well. And so that really worked well to actually raise awareness, get the discussion starting because now every time I participate in a book show, maybe Montreal, Toronto, Quebec City, and stuff like that, and I present those books, uh, a lot of people, they don't know about that. They say, "Oh, okay." Like, and then I ask the kids, "Do you have any kids in your class that, acts differently and stuff?" And they say, "Yeah." So this is probably what it is. I remember I did a presentation north of the province here, um, in a classroom, and I was presenting my books, and there was a kid on the spectrum at the back of the room, and right in front of him, there was a little guy, a little student, who asked me, "What you're describing, is that real? Is that something you made up? Is that real?" And it surprised me because right behind him there was a student colleague that was on the spectrum, like, and he was a nonverbal, and of course he was gesticulating and just like little grunts here and there. And my reaction was like, "No, it's not made up. My son exists. It's a real thing that's happening. And if you look behind you, your friend behind you, he is on the spectrum of autism." And it goes, "Oh, like um, it's amazing just how, uh, you know, yes, we talk about it, but there's still so much not known about the autism, right? About the autism spectrum. The thing is that the spectrum is so wide that it's difficult to be able to um, diagnose what's going on for a person. Um, and so doing those presentation actually prompted me to think, okay, well, I got a book for kids, but do I have a book for the parents who just got the diagnosis? Because I've been there. I was not knowing what to do, not knowing what to expect. And so, about 3 years ago, I wrote a small book in French. I'm translating it in English now. But it's about how my wife and I lived the diagnosis of our son from birth to his 8th grade. So all the challenges that he's met, all the obstacles that he's beaten, uh, everything, um, even bullying. Like he was bullied. He didn't know he was bullied. So I was the one to tell him. But just to show you just how it's hard sometimes, because when I told him he was being bullied, he was not mad at the friends. He was mad at me for telling him, because now he has to look for new friends. And for kids on the spectrum of autism, it's really difficult to create friendship with people your own age. It's easier for them to create friendships with younger or older people for some reason. And that's the case for Sam. So he was really mad about me and mad at me, sorry. And I really didn't know what to do. And he was mad at me for about, I would say, 2, 3 weeks for telling him. Um, Come to find out later on that the story was not exactly as he told it. Like he came to us and said, "No, well, my friend, we played like this, and there was some missing information in the story that basically made it that the play was good. It was not bullying at all." So and that's when I told him, Sam, it's really important that when you say a story, that you tell the whole thing as it happens. Because in life, if you miss a little part, which is an important part, that's probably going to play against you at one point, like it did with your friend here. And so I communicated with the parents of that friend and told them that I am sorry. My son didn't tell me the whole story, and that if their son would like to be friends with my son again, not a problem at all. You know, but it's stuff like that that sometimes makes it difficult to be a parent of a kid of the spectrum. Um, yeah. So I wrote that book, the book for the parents, so that they know of one experience of parents with a kid on the spectrum. Now, the thing about this book is that that's only one kid on the spectrum. It's, if you say you've met someone with autism, well, good. You just met one person that has one side, one aspect of autism spectrum. You didn't meet all of the aspects of the autism spectrum at all. You just met one person that lives some of things of autism. Um, and so that's what's hard to talk about, because I have friends who have kids on the spectrum as well. And their son is a lot different than my son. See, my son likes a lot of stuffed animals. Their son likes to have stuffed logos like Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, Chrome, those little logos, those little icons. My friend has to basically knit all of those, create those little plushies for his son. So you could have those logos at home, like Windows, Apple, like stuff like that. So it's really different. And it's amazing to see the differences on the spectrum. And there's another thing also that has to stop is that there's a lot of misconception of the autism spectrum. Um, some people say that, oh, they have a talent. Oh, they because they think of Rain Man. Yes, Mr. Hoffman is a good actor, but they don't all have a talent. Some of them will be dependent for the rest of their lives on their parents, caregiver, or stuff like that. It's not all all of them that has a superhuman talent or memory or stuff like that. It's those are the things that we have to kind of stop thinking when we think about autism, that they're all super talented in some way. Um, some are not. I've met some people on the spectrum that unfortunately will have a very secluded life because of their autism situation, where they have no control over their members. Um, and some of not are nonverbal, and unfortunately, they're not able to communicate the way they want to do it. They're on the wheelchair, and But yeah, that has to stop. Um, and so, yeah, so that's why we wrote that book, is to basically show parents just got a diagnosis of a kid on the spectrum of autism, that it's not all that bad. There are good moments, and of course, there are difficult moments, but the good always surpasses the bad times, right? Um, there's a lot more positive than negative in the experience that I have.
In the books, how do you as a father, how do you want a parent to describe Sam to their children if they have questions about Sam or anyone that they maybe have in their class that is on the autism spectrum? How do you normally suggest that someone might describe?
It is what it is. I'm actually proud to say he's on the spectrum of autism. I'm actually proud of that. When someone presents their kid to my son, I always say, "Well, Sam is, on the spectrum of autism. Do you know what autism is?" And a lot of the times is, "No, I don't." So I said, "Well, get to know him. You get to know one little aspect of autism and stuff like that." And no, it's I never wanted to hide it, because it's there. I mean, in Canada right now, the prevalence of kids being diagnosed on the spectrum of autism before the age of 5, we're 1 in 27, I think now. In 2018, it was 1 in 43. So if you think about it, within 5 years, like, the statistics have raised considerably. And the thing about this is that those kids are going to grow up and become adults at one point, and then the workforce is going to be 50-50. We're going to have 50 people on the spectrum and 15 that are 50 that are don't. They're not. And then that number is going to grow higher, right? So we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that as a society, because basically what we do now with the people who are on the spectrum, if they're unlucky, they get hidden in kitchens, or they become janitors and stuff like that. In jobs where we can actually hide them. That's why I'm writing those books, because not only the child learns about autism, but also the parent. Because when son was young, I used to go to his on his bed and read him a bedtime story, right? So if I read them stories about autism, then not only the child learns, but the parent learns as well, and so we're better prepared for what's coming. Um, but yeah, no, I don't hide behind the word autism. It's nothing that scares me now. It used to.
You carried this idea a bit further when we were talking before and saying how Sam, what you want for Sam is you want him to still be able to follow his dreams and not, like you were saying, be in the background, like in the back of the kitchen or a janitor or
Yeah.
wherever it may be. Like he has dreams and he has goals. And I loved how you that are outside of that. And I loved how you spoke um, about supporting him in those dreams. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Children on the spectrum of autism are just like us. They have dreams, they have expectations, they have like goals. For Sam, like, he wants to become a graphic designer. And as luck would have it, I'm such a thing as well. So I'm gonna help him to achieve that. And he had goals. He wants to be able to create his own books, comic strips. He wants to be able to create his own websites and stuff like that. And so it's all things that he's going to be able to do with graphic design. And we really we're trying to help him as much as we can to be able to achieve that, because just like any other person, we all have dreams, we all have expectations, we all have hopes, we all want to do something amazing. We all want to change the world in some way, right? So, why should we stop when it comes to somebody that's a little different than all the others? Why should we put them elsewhere, right? There's a lot of the people that are on the spectrum that actually one of the character traits is that they're really focused when they come to a task. They are focused on achieving a goal that is presented to them, and a lot of people forget that. Um, you know, so when it comes to creating something, when my son starts drawing, he draws like he's just like concentrating on this thing. And, when he creates a new comic strip, he just picks one that he has written down and he just starts doing it. And that's what he wants to do. And so a person on the spectrum of autism, if you, you hit them where it's really their focus, what they like to do, then you bet they're going to be able to do the work properly and efficiently and it's going to be up to like the dots on the I's and the bars on the T's and stuff like that. There's not going to be a mistake because they were so focused. Of course, that's one side of the spectrum. There's the other side of the spectrum where there are people who are going to stay dependent for the rest of their lives. But they also have dreams as well. Um, so it's up to us to basically be able to offer them those kind of opportunities. And to do so is to talk about that, talk about autism, talk about, autism acceptance, not segregation, because it still happens. There's some schools right now in our country here in Canada where they separate the kids who are on the autism spectrum in special classes instead of integrating them with the other students where they should be able to see, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be right now. This is, I should be at this level in English or whatever. So that would motivate them to actually attain that. Instead they're being put in a class with other people who have, difficulties and stuff like that. And this says, okay, well, this person has, a little less problems whatsoever. At least it's hard with math. So maybe I'm okay where I'm at right now. And we're not helping them if we do that. We should really integrate all the kids on the spectrum of autism with all the others. We should include, not segregate. So yeah, so for me, it's really important to be able to provide uh, the opportunities for the people on the spectrum, the kids on the spectrum, to be able to achieve their goals because they're just like us. They just do it differently, but they're like us. They have dreams like us. They feel like us. They cry like us. They smile like us. Yeah, they're just people that live life differently.
I love it, everything that you've shared, and I love just how you've taken such a stand for Sam and how you are. I don't know. It just has touched me how you are showing up for him and raising awareness for autism and for people who, like you told me, you're also writing other books for just people who are maybe different and including people who are different, and it's okay to be different. And I just really love that and what you stand for in that way. And I think it's a really important conversation to have in our families, and that will make our families stronger. So I'm going to link to all of the IMCM series. I know how many IMCM books are there in the series at this time of
Uh,
recording?
yeah, the My Friend Sam books, I got 11 in English, 14 in French. I got 2 in Vietnamese. Yeah, and that's what I'm at right now. We're developing the book number 15 now. And when I say we are, because my son's involved as well, he chooses the subject because it's him. So it's all real stories. It's nothing invented. It's all experiences that we had with him. So the 15th one is going to be about his phobia that he had about dresses. Someone told him at one point that dresses eat the lady's legs. And
Oh,
so for the longest time, my wife could not buy a dress at all or wear a dress. We just got the permission when he was around 16 years old. And that's last summer. So, we met psychologists with him and, taught him about irrational phobias and stuff like that. So it's something that's really interesting as well, because there's a lot of phobias out there that the people on the autism spectrum, sometimes the phobias they have are really irrational, and the things that they're afraid of really uncommon. Uh, Dresses, for example. So yeah,
mhm.
that's the 15th book that we're creating now.
And the first book, tell me a bit about the first book that you wrote. What is included in that first book?
The first book we're discussing about how he got Sam ready for school when he was in kindergarten and first grade. And it's the difficulty that he had with textures in food and clothes. Um, and also the imagery on clothes that also was a problem. Sam never ate cereal with milk; like it was always separate. Like we had the bowl of corn pops, and then you had the glass of milk next to it. And of course, it's soy milk; it's not cow's milk because he has an allergy to it. Um, and then uh, uh, getting him dressed was really hard because at the time he wasn't speaking that much. It was still like iffy. And so, just trying to put a shirt on, if it was like a shirt that irritates the skin, then the only thing was say is like pichar, which means, itchy, itchy. And then he says, rabbit. And we're like, rabbit? What do you mean rabbit? And then that's all he said, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. But what he wanted to tell us is that he wanted to put the shirt that was nice and fuzzy, that was really nice on his skin. So it's you have to play detective sometimes to figure out what we had to play with him to figure out what he was saying, and then he started pointing at stuff later on. Um, and then putting on his jeans was something also really hard because it had to be blue jeans, a specific blue with no imagery on the pockets at all. And we learned that because one of his jeans had the images of two guitars crossing each other. And he said in French, he said, no guitar, no guitar. Jeans don't play guitar. Jeans don't play guitar. Like he just threw the thing on the floor. So we had to, figure out that it was the actual pocket that was the problem. So we had to, remove it and just replace it. But yeah, it took us a while there. Um, and yeah, so that's pretty much what the first book is about. It's about the difficulties of that and communicating what he really wants to say. The difficulties with the texture of the clothes on the skin and the texture of the food.
And what a great resource, for all families, I feel like whether you have a child on the autism spectrum or not, I think even reading that will help a family better understand, maybe a child or a neighbor, a friend who is on the autism spectrum. I'm gonna wrap here, but I would love to give you, the opportunity to share do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to leave with our readers or our listeners rather?
If there's one thing I could say is that, let's say you're in a grocery store and you see a child that's yelling or screaming and stuff like that, and the parent looks embarrassed,
Mhm.
trying to control. Instead of just walking away, maybe ask the parents if you could do something to help. Sometimes that would be really appreciated. There's nothing worse than the guilt of knowing that your child is different and in a social place, and for some reason he saw something or she saw something that um, just scared them or made them we call that stim, and the stimming is just so overpowering. Sometimes it's you feel guilty that you're disturbing the peace around you because of your child. And so I know it's out of the blue. It's really something that people are not used to, but just asking the parent if they need help with anything. Um, they're probably going to say no, but inside they're going to feel really, really great because, they said, okay, well, I'm not by myself in this. Like,
Mhm.
people are starting to get interested into the situation whatsoever. Because yeah, those eyes, the when your child is having, you feel them as a parent, you feel them, even though you're not looking. I feel them when we used to do groceries with him, and he had a stim or crisis or whatsoever. We of course were concentrating on him, but we felt the gazes, we felt them. And so, and like keeps you chilled at home or something like that. Those. So yeah, so that's the worst. That's the as a parent with a kid with special needs, that's the worst. That guilt there, and it's not our fault. It's just the way it is, right? But instead of having the gas or the stairs, just can I help you with something? You know, just that's gonna go a long way.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, because I think I might be inclined myself to want to help, but maybe run it through my mind but I don't know what I would do. I probably couldn't do anything, so I won't offer, even though I would want to. I could see myself not. So I love
Mhm.
your suggestion of what's the worst that can happen? Is they're like, no, we got this, and then but they feel like supported in it, and they feel like
Exactly.
there's somewhat like other people there, like on their side and looking out for them.
Exactly. Yeah, because as a parent on the spectrum, of a child with the spectrum, we feel alone a lot of times. There was a lot of social occasions that we missed because we didn't want to leave her son, because we didn't want to call for a babysitter because, what's going to happen? Is it going to be
Mhm.
okay? Stuff like that. So don't want to disturb my wife's mother because she lives 2 streets away from us, but she's elderly and stuff like that. So we didn't want to impose Sam's reactions to whatsoever to her. But yeah, there's a lot of guilt when it comes to being a parent of a child on the spectrum of autism. So yeah, it's crazy, but we don't want to impose that on other people. That's our thing, right? We're gonna take care of it. We know how he is and stuff like that. And just really quickly, when I visit my parents in Montreal, because we're 10 hours away drive here, they don't know my son as well as my mother-in-law. So sometimes uh, there's challenges in Montreal because my son is not really well understood. So we have to educate my parents, even though they've read the books. I still have to educate them. Son doesn't like this. Stop this. This is not good. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges. So
Well, I again love what you're doing for Sam, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on to the Family Rad podcast and share with us your experiences and your resources as well. We'll link to all of those. So thank you, Patrick.
well, thank you for having me. It was a great opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Family Brand podcast. To say thank you, we have something really awesome we'd love to share with you.
We often hear from families who will tell us that they just feel so overwhelmed because of the demands that are placed on them. They feel like they're constantly being pulled in so many different directions and spread thin, and they're spending time as a family, but they don't feel like it's quality time. They're not really connected, and they want to be more intentional. And we can certainly relate because we felt like that at one point in our family. And so we created a guide that allowed us to really be more confident around how we spend time as a family and what we say yes to and what we say no to. And it's just brought so much more peace into our home. It's made our lives so much more simple, and we want to share it with you. So if you go to familybrand.com/free, you can download the How to Take Back Your Family's Time guide. And I can promise you it'll give you more confidence and more peace in your life and in your family.
One last thing, we feel so inspired when we hear from families that we are making a difference for them. We would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and a review on the podcast so we can reach even more amazing families. We truly believe that the way we change the world is one family at a time.